The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to TechGig webinar series, our endeavor to empower techies. We believe that sharing of knowledge is the key to enhance our skills and grow us as professionals. With this principle in mind, we have initiated a series of webinars conducted by industry experts to give you all a crisp insight of various domains. The topic of today's session is Beyond IT, Building a Career Around Your Strengths. Our guest speaker today is Anil Sachdev. He is the founder and CEO of Grow Talent Company Limited and the School of Inspired Leadership, that is SOIL. He is also in the National Committee, HR and Leadership CII. Grow Talent was created in July 2000 and became the leader in the strategic HR consulting industry by 2006. It enables large number of global and local organizations to achieve breakthrough performance by realizing the potential of their people and creating a talent advantage. In October 2008, him and other co-founders of Grow Talent entered the field of education and creating SOIL, the School of Inspired Leadership. This innovative school has been co-created by a consortium of 32 leading firms such as Aditya Birla Group, Hindustan Unilever, Infosys, etc. In August 2010, a research study of IIM Ahmedabad named it as a game changer in higher education, and in November 2010, the case study on the model of SOIL was named as amongst the top 3 innovations in India Corporation by an eminent jury of All India Management Association. Recognized as a thought leader in leadership development and organizational transformation, Anil has done pioneering work with leading global and local firms. He has been additional faculty to leading business schools such as Indian School of Business, Kelley School of Business, Indiana University, GMI, Flint, Michigan, Antioch University, Seattle, Ohio University, and University of New Brunswick, Canada. He began his career with Tata Motors in 1975 after completing his MBA. He is the founder of Eager Consultancy Services and was its CEO till 2001. Anil serves on the academic committee of CEDEP, the Leadership Institute of Fontainebleau, is a member of the Global Compassion Council Charter for Compassion International, chairs the National Committee of Human Resources of the Confederation of Indian Industry of India, and is a trustee of Chinmaya Mission, a global spiritual NGO. His biography appears in Who's Who of the World, published by Marcus in 1991. So, without further delay, I introduce you all to our guest speaker. Over to you, Anil.
Thank you very much, Aradhana, and welcome, my friends, to this time and to this space. This is a wonderful adventure in learning together, thanks to technology. And I want to say that it's something very fascinating when we come together in a community because we choose to show up around questions that truly matter to us. So, you have chosen to show up in this cyberspace at this time with me to take responsibility for the kind of questions that you are concerned about. And so let me make some opening comments, by way of just introducing myself. I am 59 years old. I am the founder of 3 startups over the last 20 years. Aisher Consultancy, which became the largest Indian management consulting company. We brought A.T. Kearney to India. We were a joint venture with the Strategic Decisions Group, a consulting firm started by Stanford professors. And then we created Grow Talent Company, which became the largest HR consulting company in India. And now the School of Inspired Leadership, which is continuing with the questions of the kind that we started even in 1991, which is to say, how do you create a model of economic development where business becomes a force to shape the way we live now? So the real question is, how do we create organizations of consequence? How do we create workplaces in which the environment is so nourishing that when people return home, they feel inspired and make their families and homes nourished, and that makes the society more positive and happy. And these are the kind of idealistic questions which led us to, first in iShare Consultancy, asking a question, how can we create economic development without spiritual impoverishment? In Grow Talent Company, we asked, how can we make people and organizations realize their full potential? And now continuing on that journey from economic development in a balanced way to helping people to realize their potential, to saying, how do we grow leaders who truly are aware about what the context of the environment is, who then deeply care about doing something about that, and then they dare to actually walk the path of transforming themselves to make the organizations and world of the kind that they envision. So that is basically the vision of soil building leaders of character, competence, and deep enthusiasm to take responsibility. And so this is a new conversation about self that we are talking about in today's webinar. And a few days back, I had the opportunity to introduce some of these topics to you. I know some of you may have been already part of that last time, and some of you have turned up to have a conversation with me for the first time. So without being too repetitive, I will introduce some thoughts which were common and then build upon them and go into the depth of the kind of questions that have brought you to this forum today. My first question to you is, how do you know what your areas of strength are? And how do you know what should you improve in yourself? You see, all of us are born to this planet. We come in the human form because we all have a purpose. We also have been given the strengths or the gifts to realize this purpose. And the very meaning of the word education, educate, in Latin means to know your, which means irrespective of whether we study science or liberal arts or commerce, education in the early years is supposed to help us to know, what do I care about? What am I good at? What's my talent? What are my true strengths? And then when I know what my strengths are, and I also understand what I wish to define as the purpose of my professional and personal life, then I can ask myself the question, if these are my strengths and this is my purpose, how do I use my strengths towards my purpose? And when I define that path, then I know that between where I am today, the point of departure, and where I wish to go, which is the point of arrival, what are the gaps? And therefore, what do I need to learn, which are my development areas, which I should improve, so that I equip myself with the competence that is required for me to move from today to where I wish to go tomorrow. So these being the opening comments, I wish to say that, like I mentioned last time briefly, there are really 6 parts of each one of us, and therefore we should be looking at our strengths in 6 layers. At the outermost layer is our physical body and the 5 senses, and there are strengths linked to that which give us the quality of perception. For example, do I have strengths of perceiving in a holistic way? Like through my eyes, do I have the power of aesthetics, the power of looking at what others don't even notice? If you have read the book, The Blink, in the first 30 seconds after you observe something, some of us have the power to perceive and know what others miss altogether. So do I have the strengths in seeing, which also is in aesthetics? Do I have the strengths in my listening, which also expresses itself in strengths around sound and music and rhythm? Do I have strengths around smelling and fragrance, which I use therefore in cooking and culinary professions, in perfumery industry? Do I have the strengths around the tactile intelligence of touching and therefore therapy, massage, those kinds of things which require the touch, kinesthetic intelligence, sewing, doing work with my hands, the fine embroidery, for example, which some of us are good at. Those are strengths which come out of the power of touch. There is also the whole aspect of saying that in any other form, when I look at hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, and tasting, the strengths are around the body, the five senses, which makes me get data about the world, the quality of perception, that makes me also understand the diversity that is there in the world. There are also strengths which come from a level of instinct. Some people have a gut level reaction. This instinct is shaped in human beings depending upon whether you believe in this or not. Some of us have a strong gut level feel, some strong instinctual intelligence, which is, people say oftentimes it is based on your past life. I don't know if you believe in past life, but if you read the book, Many Lives, Many Masters, you will find this Harvard psychoanalyst who talks about how his patients had, for example, fear of water because in their past life they had drowned. Now, some of us are very good at understanding that this instinct that is guiding us, is it something to do with the data I am receiving just now, or is this because of some past tendencies that I'm not even conscious of? And therefore, people who have the strength to know how much of their instinct they can trust, they are able to not just react to situations, but they are able to respond. So the mastery over instinct helps us to move from the reaction to response, which is based on converting data into information. At the third level of the human being strengths, there are strengths which are linked to the emotional self. Do I have the ability to strike a conversation, to listen deeply, to build trust through empathy? And that is where we are moved by the whole emotion of compassion, which means not only we feel for some people and their situation, but we want to do something about that. That's from empathy when we move to compassion. And there are strengths some of us have who have this gift of really being able to strike a rapport with a stranger, being able to build trust with difficult people, being able to influence groups to form communities. And it's all linked to our strengths of emotional intelligence. After that comes the strengths that we as techies and engineers, of course, have been measured to death on, which is how good are we on our quantitative ability, how analytical we are, the whole world of big data and analytics, which talks about our ability to understand the correlation between cause and effect, which is broadly called IQ. But we also understand as we do problem solving, as we write new code, as we write and develop new products, where we are not just in the services world in IT, but into product development. That time we have the conceptual ability to have a strategic perspective, which means we have the divergent thinking in our mind to ask out-of-the-box questions, which are not developed by analytical ability, but by our innovative and creative ability, which is also called design thinking and innovation intelligence. So some of us have strengths in that, because that helps us to convert the meaning that we derived in the information through relationships, saying why is this important, because the source of the information is through so-and-so person whom we trust, therefore the information becomes meaningful. But then in order for the meaning to be acted upon, I have to convert it into a specific knowledge, which is of taking decisions, of making choices, and for asking myself the question, what is the right thing for me to do in this situation? How do I optimize a variable from a customer perspective, with a shareholder perspective, with an employee perspective? Because life often is not as simple as just a few variables. So my ability to link everything together, connect the dots, and think holistically is this deep knowledge, which is really what Dr. Deming in quality calls the profound knowledge, which is what helps me to make ethical decisions on which are fair to all stakeholders. And some of us have this wonderful strengths at this intellectual level to be able to think holistically, which is both analytically and creatively, in order to arrive at a holistic solution, which is what makes me a powerful ethical leader. From there, however, we understand that even though we may be very good with our five senses, be able to lead our instinct, be able to manage our relationships well, and able to take smart decisions, if we do not watch out, we could fall in love with our own abilities and our action and past, which is what develops ego, which means in a way our past success prevents future success to happen, and therefore the ego gets in the way. And sometimes we also find that if we have the values which have been shaped by people who really have influenced us a lot, if we have had good role models, if we have read the right books, seen the right movies, had the right moments in our life which have shaped our values towards making the world better, then there are inspiring and human and spiritual values. On the other hand, if we have had the role models who have told us how to take shortcuts, who have made quick money, who have got around by manipulating people, sometimes our values also get mixed up, and we believe that in the world of commerce and industry, unless you are manipulative, you cannot get ahead, and thereby some of those habits come in the way. Also, if we are not very secure about ourselves, if we don't have a sense of a larger purpose, we begin to think too much about our own selves to say, what is in it for me? And we begin to get concerned, even though we may be wealthy and rich, we may be worried about whether we will continue to be wealthy and rich. So those are the kind of fears that come in. But once we are able to have the strength to really leverage our positive human and spiritual values and overcome all the negative values of, let's say, comparison and hatred and jealousy and anger and so on, and once we are able to overcome all the fears that we have about what would people say, or fears of the unknown, or the fears of failure, then we are able to make our choices really sustainable. That means we do not move from today to tomorrow, but we balance today with tomorrow, which is what the definition of sustainability is. And if we do this well, and everything is aligned between our action at the body level, our information that we are getting through our instinct, which also is expressed through our breath energy, to our relationships, to our choices, to our actions which conquer our ego. And once we are able to transcend our ego, we know that we can access that life-giving force within each one of us, which is the truth, the consciousness, which is the source of all innovation and creativity. Now, some of us have this wonderful strength to be able to overcome our fears and get into our own deeper source of generative thinking, which is the source of all creativity and innovation, which is the unlimited potential, which is that creator energy inside us, which is called life itself, the life-giving force. So that is seen in the strength of what is called mindfulness, which means the ability to be fully present. So when we look at these 6 layers of self, we say that those strengths which help us to move from the outermost circle, for example, if all our strengths are around the body, we are only oriented by pleasure. If our strengths are towards emotion, our world is determined by relationships. If our world is determined by our intellectual choices, then we are only limited by the intellectual conversation. And those of us who only want to achieve a great height so as to be known, so as to leave a legacy, are the ones who are governed by their ego sphere. But once you move from the outermost layer to the innermost layer, and ultimately if we really, our life becomes one of choosing a life of purpose, of making a difference to our world, then, as my teacher Swami Chinmayananda would say, then you rise in love, which means you develop deep love for a cause, which is something which is all about making our world better. And when you get inspired by such a cause, leadership happens to you. So my teacher would say, the world's best leaders are the world's best followers, because they derive all their power from following a cause which is great. So first of all, we have to understand that our biggest strength comes from the power of our own character, which means our deep commitment to a cause. Whether we are working as code writers or project leaders or analysts or in any other role in the IT industry, the question we have to ask ourselves is, do I have this strong strength internally of character? That means I have a sense of purpose which brings me to work every day. I want to make a difference to my workplace, to my team, to my colleagues, to my customers. And if I have that sense of mission around the way I work, then no amount of obstacles come in the way. That means I really rise in love for my work, for my colleagues, for my organization. And such an individual acts with deep inspiration. And such a leader, therefore, is the most powerful colleague to have, because the purpose of that person's life is in order to excel and be inspired and inspire others. Now, even if you are not that kind of a leader, but your leadership is around conquering your own ego and working for the success of others, you are powerful. If you are not like that, but you are a great thinker, you are an inventor, you can come out with new ideas. That means through the power of your intellectual ability, you can make a difference. And if you are not such a person, you can make a difference through kindness, through generosity, through making others happy by smiling at them, if not anything else. And if you don't have that, you can even beautify the world by the emphasis you make at the workplace on, through the power of visualization, on aesthetics, through the power of the way you speak to people, through the sound intelligence and musical intelligence, the way you even speak, the tone of your voice, the way you impact people in your body language. Or if nothing else, you can even make a difference by, let's say, contributing to, let's say, making others happy through, for example, if you have the skills of cooking or doing things like that, or working with your hands, you can make a difference. So it doesn't matter what your strengths are. Our question to ask yourself is to know that there are 6 layers of strengths, and for you to be aware of that fully. Here are some helpful questions which are very helpful to know your strengths. Ask yourself the question, in the last few years of your life, when was I at my joyful best? Which means I did something that made me feel very happy for a long period of time. Then ask yourself the question, what enabled me to do my best work? What was present inside me which made me excel? Then ask, what does this teach me about my own strengths? And then ask the question, when I look at these strengths, how are they linked to the way I lead my body and the 5 senses? Therefore, the strengths are linked to that. Or they are linked to my emotions and the way I deal with people. There are strengths linked to that. Or they are the way in which I think and create and innovate. So they are linked to my intellect. Or they are linked to higher purpose. That means my strength is really my character, which is my cause that I am in love with, which shows in the way I work every day. And therefore, I have that deep strength. So you can categorize your strengths in different ways. So if I were to summarize what we have been talking about so far, we believe that the essence of this journey is to understand the larger notion of leadership or inspired leadership, which is what SOIL is all about, which is a business school which says forget about only good old management, which is about planning, organizing, and controlling, which all the business schools provide. But on the other hand, be more aware of leadership and leadership of self, which is how do you lead your own body and actions? How do you lead your own heart and emotions? How do you lead your own thinking process? And then to realize, how do you get led by that inner voice guiding you, which is that divine energy, that conscious energy, that truth within, which Sri Ravi Shankar, for example, says, that childlike quality inside each person, the innocence, which is waiting to be tapped, that generative quality waiting to be tapped. So it's to understand that life is about really, your strengths emerge most when you make conscious choices. And when you enable others to do so, you are acting like a leader with a difference. And in order to therefore understand that strengths can be at that various levels, the nearest tool that can express this in multiple ways is a tool we work with called Caliper, which is a company founded more than 50 years ago by a psychologist, Dr. Greensberg, who was blind at the age of 13, but he became New York's topmost psychologist, created a company with over 300 PhDs called Caliper Corporation, which today has done millions of people's testing on what are their natural strengths. And we use this Caliper instrument. We have done this assessment of more than 10,000 leaders in India, including all the senior management of companies like Tata Steel or Mahindra's or Taj Hotels, for example, in which we help people to discover their strength through the psychometric tool, which is what we also use because we believe that CAT and GMAT are very limiting tools for you to understand your strengths when you apply to a good business school. So we use Caliper, which is a much more powerful and in fact even more expensive test, but we subsidize every candidate who takes this test to understand because we believe strongly in the power of Caliper, which helps people to really discover their own strengths. These strengths are categorized into general traits on leadership. For example, the amount of assertiveness you have, the amount of influencing ability you have, the amount of resilience you have, and then it moves on to the dimension of how you use your intellectual power to take decisions and solve problems, or how do you combine all your traits through your social intelligence and interpersonal intelligence to influence people, and that helps you to provide service to others. And finally, how do you organize your resources, manage your time, and actually do execution? So there are people who are very good in doing those things as well. So this multiple intelligence view of yourself helps you to truly discover your strengths in a comprehensive way. Now the question, which brings us to the heart of this webinar. There are different ways. Some of you may be very good with numbers. Some of you may be very good with people. Some of you may be very good with art form. Somebody amongst you may be very good in getting things done, in organizing events. Irrespective of what your strengths are, you have to ask yourself the question, why should you really love yourself? What are the strengths in you that make you a unique person? See, unless you recognize your own uniqueness and unless you have reason to love yourself, you cannot really make an impact in this world. So my question to you at this point is, what is it that you are aware of within you which shows your own strengths, which is what you love about yourself? And then the question, are you building a career around these strengths? See, why is career important? Because if you look at our life, and an average, let's say an Indian lives for, say, 75 years, life expectancy is going up every year. And there is one research to show that in 30 years from now, which is when many of you will be getting to my age, the life expectancy may go close to 100 with the advancement in medical science, which means you may have a first career till the age of 70 rather than the age of 55 or 58 or 60 today. Your first career may end at 70, 75. You may have a second career at 80, 85. And then you may do service till you are 100 if you are healthy. And the chances are you will be healthy if you follow the right medical advice. So and if you look at therefore work and careers, you see, once you have educated yourself and understood who you are and what your purpose is and choose your career carefully, then for the rest of your life, for 30, 40 years today and 60 years tomorrow, you are going to spend your life at work. That means your career will become the most dominating part of your life. It is your career that will define who you are. It is the way you spend your time at work will define your attitude towards life. And that will determine the kind of happiness of families. And that will define the culture of our communities and our country. Therefore, careers are so very important. You see, because if we return home after spending 8-10 hours at work, feeling really happy about what we did, enjoying the people we work with, and taking pride in what we did, then we will go back with a feeling of happiness. And when we return home like that, it won't be that it is thank God it's a Friday, but it is more like thank God it's a Monday because I'm going back to my colleagues with whom I love to work. We take pride in what we are doing. We are building something special here and things of that kind. So it's very important, therefore, for us to make the right choices to say, how should I spend my time at work? First of all, what kind of organization should I be in? Is it an organization that really encourages me to think holistically, which makes me take more responsibility? Or is it an organization that is really making me compromise with who I am, or it makes me compromise with my spiritual, ethical, and human values? So it's very important before you do career planning for you to do life planning, to say, what do I deeply care about? Who are the people in my life that I care about? What are their needs that I would like to serve? For people like Gandhi, the whole of India mattered. Their need for freedom and independence mattered. For people like Einstein, it was important for them to ask fundamental questions about nature itself. For some others like Ela Bhatt of Seva in Gujarat, the women empowerment issue was important. For somebody like a Dr. Kurian, the lot of the milkman and the dairy industry was important, and the rural India was important. For somebody like an Arvind Kejriwal today, whether you agree or disagree with him, he seems to be asking a question on what can we do to develop a new conversation on politics. So it's coming out of that sense. And I was with Arvind Kejriwal day before yesterday because I chair the National Committee of Human Resources of CII. So as I received him, we spent 10 minutes together. It was a wonderful conversation. I met him after a few years. And it was a conversation about saying, what does he care about? And I could see that his life goal is all about trying to make a difference to this country. One may or may not agree with his methods or his politics. So I think defining your life purpose is first most important before you define your career purpose. See, in order for us to ask this question, therefore, we cannot just use our binary thinking of go, no go, which we are taught to do many times in the world of IT, which is using our analytical mind to look at things holistically. You see, because the left-hand side of the brain, the IQ, does help us to grasp a lot of complexity. But unless we measure that in a way that balances it with the right-hand side of the brain, which is more intuitive, which is more emotional, which is more creative, we will not be able to find new answers to this complex question of what matters to us. You see, because intellectual capability, knowledge, and technical expertise may be there, but this is not a threshold or a differentiator for outstanding leadership. What really matters is, do we really ask the right questions? Are we even aware of the stakeholders that are important in our lives? Are we paying attention to our multiple roles? The role of a father, the role of a spouse, the role of a brother, the role of a sister, the role of a daughter or a son, the role of a neighbor, the role of a colleague in a team, in a client organization. There are multiple roles. And those of us who are able to master the different roles in a balanced way have the tremendous differentiating advantage, because such people demonstrate high amount of EQ or emotional intelligence. And we all know by research that the power of the heart is many times more powerful than the head. And the heart power comes out of the right brain orientation, the creative, emotional, intuitive capacity, which actually helps us to use our technical expertise better. So there's a lot of research available, and some of which I have quoted here, to say, why do smart people who are very intelligent fail in companies? You may have seen this in your own companies where you're working. You see, it's because of all the abilities deemed essential for effective performance, 67% are related to the way people deal with people. Particularly when you rise from the position of an analyst or a code writer or a software programmer or a software tester to when you become a team lead, when you become a project manager, when you become a program manager, when you become a business unit head, as you go higher and higher up, the competencies keep becoming more and more intangible. They are all about emotions, how you make people feel. See, there's some research done, because I have founded consulting companies and done several global projects. Clients will forget 10 years from now what have you done, but they will remember how you did it. That means they will not remember the assignment you did or the product you developed or the service that you provided, but they will remember the way you dealt with them. People remember that for a lifetime. They remember whether what working with you was a joyful experience or working with you was a painful experience. My teacher Swami Chinmayananda would say, some people, wherever they go, they spread happiness. These are called, what Swamiji said, cultured people. They have high EQ. On the other hand, there are some people who, when they enter our room and go, we say, oh my God, I am not feeling good about myself. This person always keeps on cribbing and moaning about things. If nothing else, he begins to moan about the traffic, or about the weather, or about the boss, or about the servant at home, or about politics in India. That means such people, whenever they go away from our room or our space, we feel happy. So some people, wherever they go, they spread happiness, and some people, whenever they go. So you must be smiling as I say that, and I'm quoting my guru for that. So there's also research by Boyat says from Case Western Reserve University, who, by the way, offers, if you note down this name and do a Google and go to the free courses in Coursera, you will find a wonderful course on emotional intelligence given by Professor Boyat of Case Western Reserve University, and you can take that. It's a wonderful course because it says of all the competencies that distinguish outstanding managers versus mediocre managers, 81% are related to emotional intelligence. So the good news, however, is something which you need not worry about if you don't have enough, that emotional intelligence is not what you are born with. You can change and develop it at any stage in your life. And this is what developing a good career beyond what you are doing today is about. You see, it has 4 parts. One is higher self-awareness, which means truly understanding what gives you joy, truly understanding what you care about, understanding what has been your past, what has made you feel joyful, what gives you the self-confidence. It's about social awareness. That means understanding others, listening to them deeply, putting ourselves into their shoes. And the very wonderful understanding of the word empathy. See, empathy, according to the world's biggest expert on empathy, Carl Rogers, he said empathy is about putting yourself into other people's shoes. But Swami Chinmayananda made us ask a new question. He said, you know, you can only get into somebody else's shoes if you know how to get out of your own shoes. So, if I still have my shoes on and I'm trying to step into your shoes, I will never get things from your perspective. But when I leave my own worries and concerns and context behind, and then I step into your shoes, then I ask the open-ended question to say, how are you feeling? You see, then I get to see the world through your eyes. That is empathy. And this social awareness of understanding what matters to others, what matters to my community, to my organization, to my team, to understand what are customers and my internal and external customers seeking from me, not just tangibly in what they want, but in the way I should deliver it, which is my service orientation. It is also about being aware of self and aware of the context of the social awareness. How do I manage myself? How do I control my own impulses? How do I create a sense of trust by being predictable and credible in honoring my commitments? And how adaptable I am that if something is not suiting me, I am able to change my viewpoint to manage the situation that I am facing. Or how much achievement orientation I have so that I don't get put off by temporary problems and therefore I take the initiative to do things. Or given the social awareness, then do I have the social skills to engage in developing others, in getting work done from them, influencing them, communicating with them, resolving conflicts, building trust and teamwork, and so on and so forth. So if we can create self-awareness which leads to better self-management, social awareness that gives me the social skills, then I think I can really do a lot to make my career really a career which is not just unidimensional in one way, but which is truly a career which is based on a holistic thinking. Now let's look at like that. You know, some of you may be asking yourself the question, should I be studying further? And if it comes out of the notion that, you know, by studying further, getting an MBA degree or a master's degree, I will jump 2 levels, earn more money, it is therefore to get a good job, a good placement. I think those are the defensive reasons for investing in yourself. The real proactive reasons for investing yourself are, what is the kind of purpose I want to have in my life? How do I transform my life towards a more joyful life? If I have to therefore make a life of purpose, what development needs I have on what do I need to learn, how do I invest in myself so as to know myself better, how do I get a holistic education that develops my own capacity to think and to relate and to learn, then those questions will help me to really invest in education for the right way. That means invest in higher education for a learning perspective, not from a financial perspective. If you are trying to learn to become better, the earning will come automatically. But if you are trying to ask yourself the question, how can I earn more, then even the learning will not happen. Learning has earning inside, but it first requires the love for really not just ourselves, but learning the love and empathy. When you have love for a cause and you have empathy for others, L for love, E for empathy, then the earning will happen, which is the part of learning. You know, the love for a cause or a subject or a purpose and the empathy of working with others, then the earning will be automatic. But if you put the earning before the love for a cause or earning before the empathy for others, then I think earning first will make the whole process get into the wrong direction. So my question to you is, first ask yourself the question, how do I decide what kind of education I should invest in? Then ask the following question, what can I do to choose between different functional choices that I may be given? So for example, if you join a business school, within a year you have to start determining your career track, which is to say, should I be getting into the marketing and business development role? Should I be getting into the HR and people management role? Should I be getting into the finance and corporate finance, investment banking, that kind of role? Should I be getting into more using technology to leverage technology to make a difference, whether through social media or Web 2.0 or other forms of technology? So how do I lead technology, those kinds of roles, rather than just work in technology? And you may be asking questions of this kind, or why should I get into supply chain, for example? Why should that be important for me? And things like that. Now, of course, there are no ready-made solutions to asking which career track you should start with. And you might actually ask yourself some thoughtful questions to say, how much do I enjoy connecting with people and enabling others to be successful? Now, if you get a lot of joy in facilitating others, in coaching others, in forming bonds with others, in connecting with people, and you are fascinated by how to understand people and get the best out of them, then obviously you are receiving some guidance from your soul that this whole area of people development, people management, people engagement matters to you. On the other hand, if you ask yourself the question, what is it of importance to me, and you find that the words you use are all about influencing others, persuading others, making a difference, then that can be the way. That will lead you to the role of marketing. If, on the other hand, you enjoy getting things done, organizing resources, etc., you may be giving yourself the guidance, I want to be in operations and supply chain. Or if you enjoy raising resources, dealing with facts and figures, analyzing, measuring data, then the world of finance seems to attract you. And on the other hand, if you enjoy some risk-taking innovation and you have the passion to create something, then you are an entrepreneur. So irrespective of where you start and how you begin, it's about enjoying and learning various aspects of business and making a difference to the organization. Because what will matter after 10 years is not which function you start in, but what kind of ideas are you generating, how are you influencing people and getting the best out of them, and how are you creating the right returns on investments. And therefore, you can ask the question, how should I devise a strategy to achieve my purpose? So in summary, begin by asking the question, who are the people in my life that are truly important to me? What are their needs that I am inspired to serve? How can I use my strengths to serve those needs? By defining the what, who, and how of your own life, you will define a purpose of your life. And once you have got a purpose or a cause, then you can begin the journey about developing yourself. You can develop a learning strategy, and you can ask yourself the question, what are the sources of this learning, and how do I get meaningful information to act to the answers of these questions? And therefore, and I want to end by this slide to say it really helps you to build a strong values and character, because the most valuable thing in life is not a thing. And more balanced awareness of not just IQ but EQ, the creativity and the spiritual dimension, all are important. And therefore holistic education, which helps each one to know yourself, make life choices and career paths that leverage your strengths and help you to develop your capacity to live a purposeful life, is most important. So I thank you for listening to me and very patiently, and now we have a few minutes of question answers. So by all means, please ask questions and I'll be very happy to answer them.
Thank you, Anil. Thanks for the insightful presentation. Let's quickly take up the questions. So I am reading out the questions and then you can answer them. So the first question comes from Akash. He wants to start his own business, but he's asking that he has a lack of confidence. So what he can do to build that confidence up, if you can guide.
I think confidence comes out of knowing yourself better. You see, if you can ask yourself these questions: one, when have I given off my best? And what has enabled me to give off my joyful best? In your life, you may have done small things, like you may have organized a function for Durga Puja, or you may have helped in raising funds for a cause, or you may have helped a friend in need. It doesn't matter what those small things are. Whatever has given you the joy, you list that down and tell you that if this caused you joy because you had the strength to do something like this. First note that down. Then ask yourself the question, what is it that you really want to take responsibility for in our world? What is that? Who are the people in your life that are important to you? What is that one need of theirs you are inspired to serve? It could be your family, it could be your friends, it could be your community, it could be your country. It doesn't matter what the size of the problem you are thinking of. But if there is an ideal in your own heart which you are inspired by, and by the way, if you are embarrassed by your own goodness, you are on the right track. That means if you think of some lofty, wonderful, idealistic idea, that's powerful. So this discovery of these two, that means in your small successes, understanding your strength and developing a love for an idea which is much bigger than yourself. That means you are loving that idea. The confidence is coming out of the cause you are serving. And then, of course, ask yourself the question, how can I use my strength towards that cause? When you keep thinking of the cause, your fears disappear and your confidence comes, because the confidence is coming from the cause. And that way you are not even the doer. You are just becoming an instrument of action. In service of a cause, you will become a powerful leader. You know, like a man like Kejriwal was a nobody till a few years back, till he found power in himself to ask questions about what mattered to this country. He's a very simple guy like any one of us. Because he has chosen a cause, he's becoming a bigger and bigger leader. And that can happen to any one of us. So it's just waiting for us to ask the right question. Begin now.
The next question comes from Maharasan. He's asking, will psychometric tests yield results similar to the one done with the help of caliper?
Please go ahead.
Will psychometric test yield results similar to the one?
Aradhana, are you asking a question?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me? Am I audible
yes,
to you?
Now I can hear you.
All right.
Now you are audible, Aradhana.
Yes. The next question comes from Maharasan. He's asking, will psychometric test yield results similar to the one done with the help of caliper?
You know, if there are good psychometric tests and there are not so good psychometric tests. So if the tests have validity and reliability, and they also have India norms, because you know, sometimes Indians use language which is different from the Western world. So if they have norms for India, they have been used enough in India like caliper has been. And if there is enough reliability and validity questions, yes, certainly psychometric tools will help. Among some of the psychometrics which are used in India, there is a 16PF test, there is the MBTI test, there is the OPQ32 test run by SHL, there is the Thomas assessment system. So there are quite a few around. Unfortunately, there are very few Indian psychometric tools, except for some developed by a Pune-based organization called Jnana Prabodhini. I particularly admire Jnana Prabodhini because they have some good psychological tests that they have developed, which are pretty good. So I would say that those are some of the Indian ones. But amongst the global ones, I put my own confidence more in Caliper as compared to others. Please go ahead.
Nidhi asks how to overcome the issue that she possesses a different strengths, but her passion lies somewhere else.
Wow, so that's a very, very interesting question, because you see, it's like this, that you have been given a picture of your strengths by feedback of others. So you have been made to believe that is your strength. And your passion comes to you when you dream about the future. That means you say that is what you are passionate about. But this business of thinking of the future and being told about your past as your strength, it may not be the way to frame this. You might actually ask yourself new questions, such as, in the last few years of your life, when were you at your joyful best? And what enabled you to do your best work? And what actually happened? Who were the people involved? And how did you contribute to that best work? And what does that teach you about your values and your strengths? Because strengths are not just analytical or creative. Strengths can be in your values and commitment as well. So it depends on what your strengths are. They could be values, they could be knowledge, they could be skills. So knowledge, skill, and attitude, all are possible strengths. So ask yourself those questions, which you know are your strengths, not what others are measuring you as feedback. Then ask yourself the question, what do you deeply care about at this stage of your life? What is important to you? What gives you the maximum joy? And then ask the question, how can you link your strengths to the answer to what matters to you? Because oftentimes what matters to us is one conversation. When it comes to strengths, we are being given answers by others. But if you truly match your own self-discovery of your joyful best and strengths. Well, let's talk about another situation, which is what you may be talking about, which is that I am actually very passionate about creating, working for a cause. For example, let's say I'm very passionate about using music to empower children with disabilities. I'm just making this up. And actually, I find that's a very powerful idea. I feel very strongly about caring for the people with disabilities and children. And then on the other hand, I find I don't have any musical intelligence, and I don't have the strength for that. Well, you know what? It doesn't matter, even if you are not a musician, but if you sufficiently love children and care for them, you can work with others who have the musical talent to work with you on that cause, because everything cannot be done by yourself. So if you have the passion and you have one strength which requires other people's strengths to contribute, that is why you require partners. That is why you, even in a startup, you require to work with others who are better than you in something else. So always ask yourself the question, if the cause is passionately important, as long as you have your strengths, you can work with others who bring complementary strengths. And so these are the two insights I would like to share.
Question
Please
comes
go
from
ahead.
Savita. Yes, can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I can.
All right. The next question comes from Savita. She's asking, if I am a mid-level professional and I'm not able to fit into my current role, does understanding strengths help to perform better? Are strengths somehow related to professional success?
You see, professional success comes out of the impact you make, and that comes out of four things. One, your strengths. Two, the opportunity. Third, the environment. And fourth, the amount of effort you make, depending upon how inspired you are. You see, are you inspired and putting in the right efforts? Then you have tick marked that. Is the environment conducive? Then you have tick marked that. Is the opportunity being given to you in the context the right opportunity? Then you tick mark that. If these three are right, then the actual output or impact you are making or performance you are delivering is linked to your strengths. But if on the other hand, you have some iffiness about or some uncertainty about any of the other three variables, then you have to go deeper and understand what's the contribution, because opportunity plus encouragement plus effort plus strength is equal to performance. So you must get that equation right and understand that all variables are equally important. But what is within your control, of course, is your effort and your strength.
Next question comes from Avi.
Go ahead.
He wants to know, what if there is no point of return? Sometimes you may be stuck with a career which may not be suited for you, but you may have stayed so long or realized it so late that you have reached a point of no return. How do you handle such a situation in life and career?
Okay, that's a very, very interesting question. See, it's like this. If your point of no return is one which you feel is compromising you ethically, morally, or spiritually, which means every day you look yourself in the mirror and say, why are you working with such people? Why are you compromising on your values? So if you're feeling violated morally, ethically, or spiritually, you should not continue in that organization even for one day. But let's say it's not anything to do with ethical violation or moral or human violation, but it is something to do with what you are dreaming about and what you are actually doing. There you have a choice to say, okay, I'm dreaming about something, even though I have spent many years doing something else. How can I begin to take small responsibility one by one so that I don't behave like I'm trapped in my current situation, but I begin to create the time to learn new skills simultaneously by spending long hours after work, spending my weekends, developing new skills so that I can start practicing on the new capability. And once I do that, maybe after some time I will be feeling empowered to take the plunge and to get out of my current situation where I'm trapped. So that would be my answer.
So the next question from
Please go
Dinesh.
ahead.
I don't know my strengths because I'm doing everything in flow without realizing what I want to do. I don't have the confidence to speak to other people, even if these people are very nice to everybody. Can you please guide?
So Dinesh, it's like this. Even though you're not the extrovert kind who easily mixes with people and asks such questions, you may identify a friend in your life whom you can trust, or a teacher or a mentor or a family member whom you can open up with. See, it's very good to have a mentor in life. A mentor can also be substituted by a good friend with whom you can be completely honest, with whom you can be vulnerable. I think once you learn to be vulnerable with somebody whom you can trust, you can begin to ask those questions, say, you know, this is what I'm thinking of, what do you think I'm good at, this is what I am getting as guidance, do you think this is what you have observed, here is the evidence that I am giving, do you think I'm on the right track? So I think having a good mentoring relationship is very, very important. In our school, every student whom we admit in our program is assigned a senior leader as a mentor. I mean, several CEOs of companies do this voluntarily for our students. That means the 100 students who study in soil, every one of them is assigned an external and an internal mentor with whom they have a regular dialogue. And these senior people love doing this with these young students who are in their 20s, and they do it as an act of service only because they want young people to take responsibility for their own development. They don't charge a single rupee for this. So there are people like that right around you who are waiting to be approached as a mentor. So I think once you overcome the hesitation and take the first step and start a mentoring dialogue with one person, maybe with a few questions at a time, I think you will be able to make the step and get out of your shell and learn to explore, because unless you are vulnerable, you cannot learn. And so vulnerability in a safe space, I think would help you quite a lot. So please go ahead, Dinesh. Take the plunge.
Yes. Next, Monica asks a very relevant and important question. How to enjoy work?
Monica. Yeah, Monica, how to enjoy work? You know, there are some very small things about enjoying work. For example, ask yourself every day, what is the choice you're going to make today to enjoy yourself? Say, you know what, today I'm going to clean my car in this way. Today I'm going to go to the office and greet 5 people with a smile. Today I'm going to appreciate the person who sits next to me for an act of kindness. Today I'm going to write something nice and email it to people that I have to thank for. So you can create excuses for livening up your own life, because when you begin to practice small acts of generosity, and I would very much like you to watch the video of Pavi Mehta. She is the daughter of the founder of Arvind Eye Hospitals. Pavi Mehta, P for Pune, A for Apple, V for Victory, I for India, Pavi Mehta. Please go to YouTube and watch Pavi Mehta's video on generosity. You see, she and people have created the world's biggest volunteer force called Service Space, where they do large number of things for people just out of making them feel good about themselves. So the way to enjoy work is to bring kindness, generosity, appreciation, and learning to say thank you. If you can thank every day a few people and appreciate a few people, from your maid to your driver to the doorman to the man on the street, it will make you enjoy your life and make you enjoy your work. Life will never be the same. So just learn to smile more, even if it's initially a convoluted smile, and soon it will become natural. It will become part of your habit, and you will begin to enjoy your life. Any other last couple of questions?
Yes, we have another question from Paresh. He wants to know how to handle the confusion when you are somewhat puzzled while selecting your career path.
Paresh, confusion comes because we spoil ourselves with choices, because we begin to say, I can do this also and that also and that also. And that's when we start getting confused. Instead of creating too many choices, let's begin in one step at a time and say, at this stage of my life, what matters to me most? And make a descending order of things which truly matter to you. You may say that out of the 100 marks you will give in the criteria for making decisions, for example, it's very important for me to spend time with my near and dear ones and family, and I must create so much time every week for them. This matters to me. 1. 2, I must find a way of reading and learning, and I must find a work or a career which makes me give the time to spend on my investment of my reading and development. That matters to me. I'm just giving examples and I'm making them up. So you choose, first of all, in a simple way, on what are the criteria that matter to you, and you write them in one matrix and divide them and use your analytical ability in giving them even the assignment out of 100, the number of marks. On the other hand, you choose options which you could create, which will each one need to be evaluated in terms of, if I choose this option will have this impact on this criteria. For example, this option will give me more time with family. This option will give me more time for reading and investment, as an example. So if you put the criteria and the choices, and for each of the choices evaluate how it would lift against the criteria and even assign it weightages, you can develop a good XY matrix analysis, as we call it. It's a good quality tool to use your analytical mind, which I'm sure you have plenty of, to convert your confusion into resolution. But it will, of course, begin by a very qualitative question to say what matters most to you. First things first. This is what we call principle-centered leadership. If you are conscious of what matters to you, then the confusion goes away. And I think what matters to you also, the indication to that is to again ask what gives you the maximum joy, not pleasure, but joy, which lasts over a long period of time. So then the confusion would go. Any last question? I think we are up with time, but if there's any one last question, I'll be happy to answer.
So we have lot many questions, but due to time constraint, I would provide you with one more question, and then rest of the unanswered question you can take them offline. So the last question is from Abhijit Das. He's asking, your advisories and discussions are focused towards one's own self to identify capacities to exploit so as to achieve goals, success, happiness. But how do you deal with frustration that follows when the control of giving an output is with the other person, probably stronger than you? And worst, if this person does not investigate life the way you do, say, after applying principles discussed in this session. Isn't it that situation in leadership relations very disappointing and get you in a negative loop inadvertently? Sorry for this very long text. He apologized in the end, but please do guide.
Yeah, this is a wonderful question. See, this is what our Guruji was once asked, Swami Tejomayanandaji, the current head of Chinmay Mission. He was asked almost exactly the same question. So I'll repeat what I learned from my Guru. He said, the state of the others and their minds and their behavior is called paristhiti. That is the environment. That is not within your control. However, the state of your response is determined by your own internal state, your own emotional and mental makeup, which is called manosthiti. That is something you are in charge of. See, you cannot control other people's behavior, but you can choose the way you respond to others. If you respond in a way that you do not show anger, do not show irritation, and do not, no matter how much is the provocation, the other person will say that, you know, this is something that doesn't work with this person. So if the other person is abusive or offensive and you completely don't allow that to ruffle you, but you stay grounded in your values and what your nature is, you see, then that person will lose the power to be abusive. And I'll end with a story. Here was this great spiritual master sitting by the side of the river, and a scorpion was coming and biting it again and again, and the master was putting the scorpion aside. Then the scorpion fell into the river. When that happened, the master jumped into the river to save the scorpion. So his disciple asked him, the scorpion was trying to bite you, and you were trying to put it aside. Now that it had fallen into the river, why did you save its life? So he said, the nature of the scorpion is to bite. He will keep doing that. My nature is to save, and therefore I will keep doing that. So remember, other people will have whatever they need to do. You will have to respond based on your nature, and therefore to end, success is achieved really by focusing on your nature, developing your strengths. It is not by studying the response you have to provocations and others, and it will not even be based on eliminating your own weaknesses, because in your weaker moments, you will be forced to react to others. But instead of that, if you remember your true nature, what inspires you, what gives you goodness, what gives you happiness, what gives you joy, if you stay focused on that, then the world will not be able to bother you. So my all the very best to my young friends on this webinar. Thank you very much for being part of this community, and all the very best to each one of you.
With that great thought, I thank Soil, who was also a winner of SHRM, a Game Changer Academic Institute of the Year Award 2013, and our guest speaker for conducting this wonderful webinar today. It was indeed a great session. I would also like to thank all our participants for their support in making this webinar a success. The recording of the webinar will be available on techgig.com by tomorrow. Thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Mr. Anil, for all your insightful information. Hope you have a great evening ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.